Hi, everyone. Welcome to AC Always Connected Top Chef Canada Inside Scoop. I'm Leanne. I'm the events programmer with the AC Hub. We are joined today by Top Chef Canada and Algonquin College alumni, Imrun Texeira. AC Always Connected is a new online event series that keeps our entire Algonquin College community connected. Before we get started, I'm just going to share a couple of housekeeping items. We kindly ask you to keep your microphone muted during the presentation. However, we encourage you to keep your camera on for some face-to-face time. Along the bottom of the screen, you will find a button entitled Chat. When you select this option, a pop-up window appears on the right-hand side of your screen. Following Imran's presentation, we welcome you to ask questions by typing your question in the Chat tab, and I will read it out loud on your behalf. To kick off today's event, we would like everyone to now open the Chat tab along the bottom of the screen. In a couple of seconds, I'm going to give everyone a fun question to answer, and we would all like you to answer the question by typing in the chat, but please wait to press send until we say so, because we're all going to send our answers at the same time. So the question is, if you were auditioning for Top Chef Canada, what would your entry dish be? So everyone type that in there, but just wait, and we'll press send together. Okay, if everyone's had a chance, I'm going to count down from 3 and we'll all press send at the same time. 3, 2, 1, go. Awesome, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your answers. We always start out our AC Connected events with an engaging question. We would now like to welcome Mark Savinkoff to introduce Imrun Texeira for the Top Chef Canada Inside Scoop. Mark is the Vice President of Advancement at Algonquin College. Under the umbrella of advancement is the Alumni and Friends Network. As Imrun is an alumni, we felt Mark would be the perfect fit to lead the introduction. Thank you, Mark. Over to you.
Thank you, Leanne, and welcome everyone. In my position, I have the privilege of hearing about some of the amazing work that our alumni are doing as they pursue their passion. And in some instances, like today, I actually have the good fortune to meet those special individuals. So I'm very pleased to be here today to introduce Imrun Texeira. Now, not many 17-year-olds can say that they've cooked breakfast for Oprah Winfrey, but for him, cooking for her as a teenager was just the start, and we might say the icing on the cake of a short but very impressive career in the culinary industry. Now, since graduating from the culinary apprenticeship program here at the college, he's traveled around the world, including the United Kingdom, talking his way into entering at top Michelin star restaurants, and upon returning to Ottawa, landed his dream job working at Atelier. In 2016, he competed against his brother in Food Network's Chopped Canada. Now, he was nominated for the College Ontario's 2016 Premier's Award, which recognizes the outstanding contributions of Ontario college graduates to make Ontario better and, in fact, make contributions all around the world. So as a former sous chef at the renowned Ottawa restaurant, Stofa, one of Canada's top 100 restaurants, and as an accomplished contestant on Food Network's Top Chef Canada, he continues to conquer the culinary scene now in Toronto. So today he's going to share the inside scoop of being on Top Chef Canada and talk a little bit about living his dream. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. Welcome, Imrun.
Thank you for having me. Definitely super excited to be here today, giving everybody the inside scoop about actually what went down behind the scenes.
And so with that, as we move forward here, I'll turn the floor over to you. Over the course, everyone, of the next few minutes here, Imrun will talk through a little bit about his experience and his presentation, and then we'll have some Q&A here after he's finished.
Wonderful. So yeah, it's definitely been quite a trip, obviously, doing Top Chef, leading off from obviously Chopped a couple years ago with my brother. It's quite the experience to go through it by yourself. I was lucky enough to go through some of it with a fellow Ottawa chef, Dominique. So it was nice not to be the only one from the Ottawa region itself. But for me, I've always wanted to hold strong and represent the place I come from, being born and raised in Ottawa, to represent Algonquin College and obviously Canada as a whole. As a food scene, we're always growing, and we need more young, enthusiastic talent to bring us into the spotlight internationally. So I'm definitely happy to be part of a growing industry, and hopefully I can become a staple name in Canadian cuisine in years to follow.
That's great. Thank you so much for that introduction. So if there's nothing else you'd like to share, we can move into the pre-submitted questions. And from there, you can kind of evaluate a little further. So the first one we have today is, what was a typical day of filming like?
So a typical day of filming, it's as long as a normal day in the kitchen, but obviously you're spending it the whole time in a studio. So when you're watching the episodes, obviously everything is as seen. If it's an hour cook-off, you only have an hour. There's nothing that you don't see that is happening behind the scenes, but obviously there's a lot of waiting around. You get picked up from your hotel, brought over to the studio. Obviously you have to eat, get dressed up, mic'd, make sure your chef coat's nice and clean, ironed out for you. You got to be presentable, obviously, for the big camera. But with TV shooting and obviously movie shooting, there's so much behind the scenes work that goes into it. Yeah, if we might shoot an episode every day or two, and that episode might be on TV for only 45 minutes plus commercials, but there's so much work that goes into it. There's a lot of respect that has to go into the behind the scenes team that puts everything together, the set, the dishwashers, the culinary team getting all the food. There's so much logistics that goes into it, and at some point you're just waiting around. For us in the industry, you're always ready to go nonstop. So to have time just to sit down, and then all of a sudden you're put into this half hour quick fire challenge, it's going from 0 to 100. So that adrenaline and that rush it's insane. It's something I've never felt in my life.
Wow, that sounds so intense. What were the judges like? Are they down to earth or friendly in person?
They are so we're definitely separated from the judges on the daily basis, but there's so much pressure where you're obviously trying to impress them as much as possible, but behind the scenes, chatting with them and just going through the day, the daily stuff. Obviously, when they're not in their nice suits or their dresses, they're all relaxed. They're humans just like us. We're all just there trying to have fun, and they're super down to earth, really, really nice people. And at the end of the day, we're all in the industry for the same reason, for the love and the passion. And it's nice to share it with professionals like that in our industry.
Did you become friends with any of the other contestants, or was it more they were your competitors the whole way through?
For me, there's always that sense of competition in what I do. That's the main reason I'm in it, because I'm a very competitive person. I always strive to be better. And yes, this is a competition, but at the same time, I look at it as a networking thing. We're all in this crazy experience together, and I've become really good friends with all the other competitors, knowing that it's 11 new friends that I was able to make, and it's going to be exciting to see how we all grow individually and possibly together in years to come. So I'm definitely happy to say I've come out with some really good lifelong friends.
That's awesome. Can you please walk us through how you felt during the cook-off? I can't even begin to imagine the amount of stress you were feeling, but also knowing that you were being filmed while going through that. How do you cope with the stress and manage to stay focused?
The stress is definitely surreal for sure, because when I'm working in a normal kitchen in my day-to-day job, it's you're cooking, no one's watching you, and you can have your time to actually do everything exactly the way you want it. And I remember my first quick fire challenge, because of Chopped, I knew how things were kind of going to go, and the cameras, the lights and whatnot, but the nerves are always going to be there. And I'm not much of a nervous plater. I'm not nervous when I cook day to day, but I remember doing my final garnishes, your hands are just trembling, and it's something you just can't control at all. But it's that experience, and that for me to put myself out of that comfort zone and just putting yourself in an unfamiliar environment it's crazy, and it's something I'll always remember.
Well, it seemed to pay off for you as well. Just watching some of the times you were cooking on there, the way that it felt like you were in your element, and you could feel that through watching you. So that's awesome. Turning away from the show and going into the restaurant industry, what is it like working in that fast-paced environment?
It's it's exactly what you said. It's a fast-paced environment. So especially with COVID times right now, especially it gives us more of a sense of taking time to breathe and to relax. During a work week, you're working like most places. Like I was working 5 days on, 2 days off, but like the whole like weeks like in just time. Everyone knows time flies so fast. So for me to wake up, go to the gym, then I'm going to the farmers market or different grocery stores. Like I'm jumping around the city and then to work 12, 14-hour shifts. It's such a fast cycle. And because I enjoy it so much, it's not like I'm ever watching the clock and counting down the hours. It's just day after day. It's so much fun. And in our industry, every day is different. I'm not sitting at a computer typing all the time or just doing invoices and calling suppliers. Every day is different and it keeps it very interesting and fun.
Sounds like it. On that same theme, a lot of restaurants have adapted their business models as a result of COVID-19. We're interested in hearing your opinion on the future of the restaurant and hospitality industry.
It's definitely a hard time for our industry as a whole. There's some of the best restaurants in the world have had to close their doors for the time being and some indefinitely, which is obviously sad to see. We work with very small margins and there's not much room for error. So a lot of our industry in Ottawa and just around the world has had to adapt. And like from me, from my fine dining background, the last thing I want to be doing is takeout. But at the end of the day, we have families to feed and we have to take care of ourselves and the establishments that we run. So we have to be able to be versatile and do something that we're not obviously used to doing. And we're going to have to bend a little bit to hopefully get back to obviously what we got into the industry in the first place to do. So hopefully within time, we can get back to what we do best, but it's a waiting game. It's just going to take time to eventually get back there.
Thank you. As you are an Algonquin College alumni, do you have any advice or tips to share with current students, some of who might even be on this call currently?
My basic advice is to talk to everyone, to be that social butterfly, to make all those connections in your class with your classmates, with your professors. For me, I was in school full time doing my apprenticeship program. I worked 2 jobs. So I was in school 5 days a week. I worked 6 days a week and I just had Sundays off to just relax and like get back to basis. But it's just that I put myself into everything. I tried to work at every high-end kitchen in the city. I tried to do all the volunteering, and the more people you know, the more opportunities that are going to come your way. And that's the main thing I was taught when I was younger. Since like before I got into culinary school, I volunteered at all the best restaurants, did all the charity events I could. So years to come, these chefs already knew who I was, where I came from. So I can't remember the last time I had to use a CV to apply for a job just based on the networking. And it just goes down to like when you open a restaurant, if no one knows your name or who you are, no one's going to come check you out. So you have to build that base and eventually that's going to evolve into a beautiful thing.
Those are great tips. Thank you. Yes, networking is so, so important, especially in a community like Ottawa's. The next question is, food can be closely linked to identity. Can you talk to us about the challenges you may have faced entering the restaurant industry and worked your way up to Top Chef Canada?
There's definitely a lot of challenges, especially based on my background. Being a man of color, I always want to represent who I am. And it would be great for me to cook the food I want in the way I want it to be showcased. So growing up with a lot of Indian food or East African food, like you don't always see that in fine dining restaurants, which is now starting to change, which is really nice to see. But for me, it's always your classic, your French, Italian, your Spanish tapas bars, if you will. But for me, I always want to represent where I come from, to represent the skills I learned at Algonquin College or the other restaurants around the city. I want to use those skills and techniques, but I want to highlight where I come from, to represent the flavors that I've grown up with, and then the flavors from my travels around the world. Because at the end of the day, for me, I'm always going to represent Canadian cuisine, and that is such a broad international thing. It's not like Italian where it's just so obvious what Italian food is. Canada, we're so diverse and multicultural. I want to represent all of that, but still staying true to my roots.
That's great. Thank you so much. And we're on the last pre-submitted question now. So if any attendees have questions for Imran, we're going to open up live questions. So you can go ahead and type it in the chat. The last question I have here is, we know you're a current supporter of Cultivating Cooks. How did you become involved with this organization? And can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, Carly and Anna, two beautiful mothers and industry folk in the Ottawa scene, and they started an organization where they would go into local elementary schools and teach the importance of the diversity of food and where our food comes from. Something I feel is very big, and it has to be emphasized in a large way, teaching the younger generation the importance of healthy food, where it comes from, and like the style of food and where it comes from. You got to know, like, oh, where does rice wraps come from, or where does falafel come from, or you got to know the culture and the heritage behind that, and then just experience, like putting that experience onto the kids. So we had one day where we brought in like fresh honeycomb from one of the owners' own beehives. So to see what real honeycomb looks like, it's easy to see a little bottle of like Billy Bee in your local grocery store, but actually to see how it's produced, like what the beekeepers wear, and like just to see how it starts from like A to Z, to see the whole process, you have a whole new appreciation for it. And once you get to try the raw products, you're never going to go back to these processed foods. So once you have that appreciation for real food, it's going to make such a better toll on your life. Your health is going to be better. Like everything around it is going to be better. And that appreciation starts with food, but goes into everything in life.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we do have some questions in the chat. So I'm going to start off with the first one submitted. There's an attendee wondering, is there a chef who you look up to, and do you have mentors in the industry?
I definitely have mentors in the industry in Ottawa for sure. There's chefs I've worked with from a very young age. And being a young chef, I was probably 14 when I started my first job, and the next person in the kitchen was probably 20 years old. So always working with older people, I'm always taking in all their advice, and I try and use it to the best of my ability. Not trying to be the young guy who knows the best way to go about it, always being willing to take that advice and moving forward. There's so many chefs now to look up towards in our country and around the world that are now trying to change the game in multiple ways. The ways that we try to look at, say, vegetables or fish, sustainability, or just the culture of our food. Trying to just change our whole perspective and move forward in such a beautiful way that will bring people ultimately together.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. The next question is, I want to know how you, this attendee wants to know how you decided what meals to prepare during the cook-off with Stephanie.
Okay. For me, one of my favorite things when I first started cooking at the Brook Street when I was in high school was a beef tartare. Super simple and a classic French dish. And for me, I wanted to take something so traditional, and even if you're not a big foodie, most people know what a beef tartare is. So for me to take something so simple and then to put my own spin on it, it's a dish I put on the menu while I was at Stofa, and I got nothing but rave reviews about. So I thought it would be a good way to showcase my background, the fusion style of cooking that I do and I'm known for, and to really like highlight who I am. I want to take something so simplistic and normal, if you will, and put a complete twist on. It's something I've never seen in my life. It's not like you're never going to see beef tartare in traditional Indian cuisine at all. So to see that fusion, to give the judges and the viewers something completely different is what I'm going for. Yeah, I might have not hit the mark completely, but at the end of the day, I'm happy with what I did, and I would love to put that dish out again for people to try.
That's great. Thank you so much. The next question is, what dishes should everyone try to make this summer, and what dishes excite you?
For me, when I think summer, I think barbecue. Eventually, when I build a house, I'd love to put a barbecue inside my house. Obviously, there's some, might not always be the smartest idea when you're smoking and working with open fires indoors, but for me, I love the outdoors. I love to be out in the sun. So any excuse for me to be outside cooking is the main thing. So I probably use my barbecue at home minimum 3 to 4 times a week. And you can do like everything. I try and do my vegetables, meat, fish, even tofu, like I get everything on the grill, and it's just another excuse to be outside. And there's just so many ways to go about it where you can't go wrong. Just slap it on the barbecue and get going from there.
That's great. Do you have an example of something you've cooked on the barbecue this week that you really enjoyed?
Well, maybe it's the kid in me. I love my hot dogs and hamburgers. That's it. So I get hot dogs made by a local farm in the Ontario region, or I make my burgers from scratch. Even just like simplistic food like that. I have chicken marinating for tonight. So I'm just trying to use like this beautiful weather as much as I can.
That's great. Thank you so much. I think you've inspired a lot of us to have barbecue for dinner tonight.
Yeah, and it's such a healthy way of cooking too, like because you are grilling, a lot of the fat drips through. So instead of that all pooling in a pan, or instead of deep frying like chicken per se, it's a healthier way, and the flavor itself is 10 times better as well. So it's a win-win in every regard.
Agreed. I think we all love barbecue food. The next question we have is, how do you lead in the kitchen? Skill set is important, but I would also say building a team is just as important.
Yeah, skill set obviously is the main thing. You want, like in any field, you want to work with professionals. You want to work with people that love what they do and that are good at what they do. But for me, having fun is number one. I can work with a bunch of skilled people, but if it's so robotic and like it's not fun, like why would I want to work there? I want to make sure people are laughing, making jokes. You want to have a nice warm environment. Otherwise, like people aren't going to enjoy coming in every day, especially for us where we're spending 12 to 14-hour days, 5 to 6 days a week with the same people. You want to enjoy that time you're being with them. I spend more time with my cooks and my chefs than I do with my own family. So for me, the places I work, I really take in the people and the surroundings as my own. And I want to obviously make it the most positive environment to be in. I don't want that high stress to always be there. Yeah, you want that stress to always be good and be pushing the envelope, if you will. But at the same time, I don't want people to think, oh, I have to go to work today. For me, I'm always so excited to go in, try something new, to see my friends, and to put yourself out there for your guests to come in. It's just such a beautiful thing. So creating that positive environment, it's massive, and it goes hand in hand with having that skill set behind it.
That was a great question and a great answer. Thank you so much for that. The next question is, as you have lived in both Ottawa and Toronto, what are your favorite restaurants in Ottawa and Toronto, and why?
I'll start with Toronto. I think I'm yet to eat there, but I've worked a lot with their wine and some of their produce and whatnot, which is Port Morissette, which is out of Toronto in the Niagara region. Known absolutely for their amazing wine. Their winemaker does beautiful work, but then to have a massive restaurant overlooking a vineyard where they grow so much of their own produce, and they're doing a tasting menu style with two very well-known and high-skilled Michelin star chefs running a beautiful place in the Niagara region. You can't go wrong. But then getting my Jamaican patties like downtown Toronto, or my like Trinidadian rotis, like Toronto is such a diverse city where you can find everything under the sun within like a small radius. So it's so nice knowing that you can go down to Spadina to get some of the best Chinese food, or I can go down to Kensington Market and get amazing Jamaican food. It's amazing to find like every cuisine in the world within one city. And then coming down like to Ottawa, living there, I know where all the good places are. I go to Farinella for my gelato and my ice cream. I love my friends over at Feyrouz doing their modern take on Middle Eastern food. And then my friends at Northern Navy doing like traditional Northern Italian food. Yeah, it's not what I like to cook, but it's definitely something I like to eat. So I definitely like to support my local restaurants, and knowing that the money I spend, like it's going to like their kids' future or to their new car. Like, so I'm helping out families, not massive corporations. And knowing like that I'm supporting that, it makes me feel so much better eating their food.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure a lot of us on this call are going to be looking up those restaurants, whether we're in the Niagara, Toronto region or here in Ottawa. The next question we have is, do you hope to open your own restaurant one day, or is your goal to become an executive chef at a large organization? Where are you headed?
Right now, COVID has definitely changed my perspective in a lot of ways. So it's going to be interesting to see how society as a whole bounces back and to see how my industry develops over time. At this moment in time, I still stay true to what I've always wanted. I've always wanted to open my own restaurant, and I still hopefully plan to get there someday. I work very hard for what I've wanted to attain up to now, and I don't plan to stop. So I definitely would like to say I'm going to open my restaurant at some point.
Are you going to share with us what the theme would be, or?
Theme wise, I'd love to, like, for me, I like the fine dining tasting menu style. It might go away a tiny bit with COVID times, but I want to still offer that experience, that blind menu, like tasting style where you don't know what's coming next. It's still a show to a show to an extent, but you have that culinary experience to represent where I come, those flavors, obviously the produce that Canada has to offer, but it's such a melange of so many different things. It's going to definitely be something different that nobody's has seen before.
Well, it sounds super exciting, and we all look forward to following your journey to see where it takes you. And maybe when your restaurant's open, some of us will make our way there to try it. The next question we have is, what are great flavor combinations for eggs in the summer?
Oof, eggs in the summer. For me, I'm a big person with spices and herbs. I'm not the biggest egg person. Maybe it's something I've had too much when I was a kid. But for me, eggs on toast has always been a massive thing for me. It's so simple. Anyone can make it. Even when I was probably like 10, 11 years old, I was making it no problem in the kitchen. But just doing scrambled eggs with a tiny bit of like cumin, ground coriander. And then for me, fresh herbs is a must. I always have my herb garden in the back of my backyard. So fresh herbs, for me, cilantro on everything. Never go wrong. So just some fresh spices into the mix, line it up with a tiny bit of milk, and then fresh herbs on toast. Nice piece of toast. Can't go wrong.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. The next question we have is related to your Instagram. Are the food posts you've been posting lately the meals you've been working on currently?
So my food post recently is my quarantine food. Because I've come back recently from the UK, I'm not working here at all. This is basically what I get up to in my spare time. I've made a little investment into like a big butcher block and a KitchenAid. So I've really just taken the time to get into some baking, some pasta work. And this is just what I make for my family here. This isn't any restaurant food. And it's something just to keep me from going too rusty in this downtime.
That's great. Thank you. The next question is, would you ever have time to teach as a culinary course at Algonquin College to pass on your knowledge and experience and passion to the next generation?
I always said I would love to do that. I always feel in this industry, there's always so much to learn and you're never going to stop learning. But the main thing is to always teach on what you know. I'm still, obviously being 25 years old, I'm still very young in the industry, no matter how far I've come already. So I don't feel I'm at that stage yet where I can pass on a lot of information. I'd still like to give myself more time so I can give the best of myself to the next generation. But at some point, I can definitely see myself in the Algonquin colors.
That's great. Thank you so much. There's no more questions in the chat, but we do have one more related to your experience on the show. And if any come in, we'll touch base on them after. So the question is, what experiences did you take away from the show? Like, what did you learn most, and what was your greatest achievement in your eyes?
What I learned most is, like, obviously the time limits are a massive thing. For the style of food I normally do in restaurants, like, you take months, days, weeks, like, to prepare something. So having an hour to make this food, it's the parameters that they give you. It's so hard, but that's part of the challenge. So it's really like ingrained in me that simplicity is key, and it's true. Simplicity is always key, and the main thing is to stick to my roots. The food that means the most to me is the stuff I like to eat. I don't want to be in a place where I'm cooking stuff I don't feel 110% about. I want to feel really connected to the food and the people I work with and the people I'm serving. So the main thing is that I'm always going to stay simplistic in my approach when it comes to food, and to always represent the food I like to eat and the food I like to cook.
That's great. Thank you so much. Are there any last minute notes either about the show or about yourself or about your cooking experiences that you'd like to share before the end of the event?
I definitely like to highlight the idea. I never got into the industry to be on the Food Network at all. It's a great way to market yourself and put yourself out there. And for me, I've never been someone who wanted to be on the big screen itself, but I always want to push people to put themselves out there and to put themselves in an uncomfortable environment. After doing Chopped, I learned some places I was really good at and some things I weren't, and same from this. It's such a growing experience and it just gives you such a big perspective. So I would say definitely putting yourself out there and being willing to get judged by not just the judges themselves on the show, but society as a whole. It's a very daunting thing, but I definitely push people to do that, to put themselves out there, to travel, to learn different perspectives and views on the world is a massive thing. And it's something that's going to help not one, my culinary career, but just my outlook on life as a whole.
That's great. Thank you so much. Before we conclude today, I'm going to put an attendee who's in the audience on the spot, if he doesn't mind. We have Jim Kite with us today, who's a part of the hospitality and tourism industry. He actually submitted a lot of the great questions today. So Jim, no pressure, but if you're comfortable and would like to turn on your microphone, we would love to have you say a few words before the conclusion of the event.
You would like to what? Sorry?
Just have you say a few words before the end of the event.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic the way Imrun steps up to compete. Most people, I think, realize I used to be an athlete or of some sort, but I always encourage the students to step up and compete in everything that we have, whether it's the competitions we have at the college. Imrun was in the apprenticeship program, so I don't know if he had an opportunity to participate in Battle of the Knives or the Hot Knife competition, or the Skills Ontario. And but every time someone steps up, whether they win or lose, they are better for it. You learn something through the experience, and I guarantee all the students that they are going to be a better chef, a better baker at the end of the experience than when they began if they didn't step up to do it. I think it's wonderful that you put yourself out there, and you've had some great experience and some stories to tell. So Imrun's a wonderful example of an alumni of the college, of the culinary programs, and it's unfortunate he didn't win the Premier's Awards. He was certainly, as a young graduate, I had the opportunity to meet him there, and he's an impressive young man. And I'd yet to meet his brother, but I'd love to have you guys over when the Restaurant International opens up once again, sometime in the future, and get to know both of you. Well, I know you a little bit, Imrun, but certainly your brother, and see how we might be able to pass on that knowledge, that passion that you have for culinary and the industry onto the next generation, because your message is so wonderful. So thank you for taking the time and sharing your experiences with us, and certainly getting a glimpse of behind the scenes of these TV shows is something a lot of people don't know about. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
Not a problem at all, Jim.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. I do apologize for putting you on the spot, but I knew your words were going to mean so much to Imrun and really make the end of the event. So thank you to you, Jim, and thank you to you, Imrun. That was a great presentation today, and we super appreciate you answering all the questions and for sharing with the Algonquin College community. If anyone would like to follow Imrun's journey on social media, the links are going to be posted in the chat now to find him on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And on behalf of the AC Hub, we want to give all attendees a huge thank you for participating in today's AC Always Connected virtual event. The next AC Always Connected event is Boost Your Health Naturally, taking place on Monday, July 13th at 5 p.m. Details can be found on the Algonquin College Student Support Services events calendar, and the link will also be posted in the chat now. So thank you again, everyone. We look forward to seeing you online on the 13th for our next event. And if anyone wanted to rewatch this event, we always record our AC Always Connected events, and they go up on the AC Always Connected event page. So this one will be up by the end of the week. Thank you again, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.